Hi, everyone, and welcome to a special episode of Brett's Brain. Today, we're going to do things a little bit different. We're going to do a longer format presentation versus the short snips that you're used to from us. Today, I'm going to walk you through a presentation that I give startup groups all the time. It's around how to put a fundraising process together. So you don't go out there and just willy-nilly start pitching people. You got to have a plan, you got to have a process. And these are some best practices and some frameworks that you can use to go out and maximize your chance at being able to close a round of venture capital. Here's a few things that we're going to go through today, but we're actually going to put this out in 3 different parts. And hopefully you can pull something out from each one of these topics, from things like why should we even raise to how do we put a pitch deck together? And again, we're going to put this out in 3 different parts. Feel free to skip around if you'd like, or just watch it all the way through. One thing to keep in mind when you're fundraising is that there's exceptions to everything. There is no black and white in a fundraise process. It's crazy things happen all the time. A company that deserves to raise capital and to have capital come in might take a year. And a company that doesn't seem that good to most people on the face might pitch the right investor, right time, take one meeting and raise all their money. What we want to think about here is how do we maximize your chance at raising capital? How do you get the most shots on goal? How do you have the best chance at raising the round that you want to raise that will enable you to take your company to the next level? Before any entrepreneur even goes out and hits the market and starts fundraising, you need to go through a thought exercise. So why do I want to raise? Do I even need to raise? Not every company on the planet that's a startup should go raise capital. Not all of them need it. Not all of them are venture backable. So go through the thought process of, should I even raise capital? Why do I want to raise it? What are the reasons? And there's one question that you should always be able to answer, at least for yourself, which is, if I raise $1 million and give up 10% of my business for that $1 million, will that $1 million grow the remaining value of the company by far more than the 10% I gave up? And if it doesn't, you shouldn't raise money. You shouldn't go to market. Nobody will be happy if you raise $1 million, give up 10%, and the business slowly grows. Once you bring venture capital in, you are expected to grow your business at exponential rates or multiples of the value that you give up. An investor doesn't want to own 10% of a company worth $1 million. And then in the next round, it's still only worth $1 million, that same 10% of $1 million. They're putting their capital to work so you can grow it. And that's what you want also. You want to take that money, understand how you're going to deploy it, and at least give a shot of growing at an exponential rate. This is true really for any time you give up equity, whether that's for an advisor, to investors for money, or to employees. How is that employee or advisor going to grow your company at a rate that will allow their efforts to increase the total pie by far more than what you gave up? So make sure you think that through. Not every entrepreneur does. Sometimes they just see these headlines of companies raising lots of money and they get shiny eyes and want to go raise money and get that headline. It might not be the best thing for your business. And in fact, if you raise capital and it's not the right thing to do, or you're not venture backable, it can actually kill your company and it can destroy any value that you've created to this point. So make sure you're the right type of company to go raise money. Timing. Timing is a big deal for startups. We have runways. Our runway runs out. That means we're out of cash. We're out of business. If you run out of cash, you die. You have to understand that fundraising takes a long time. I think we're all optimists as entrepreneurs. I was an entrepreneur for a long time. I've raised venture capital. I've also invested in a lot of companies. And I've helped them raise capital. The vast majority of this presentation is based on things I've seen in market from all of the companies I've worked with. And one thing I've seen is it always seems to take a lot longer than the founders want and think it will take. And you need to plan, because if you have 10 months of runway left right now, and you think it's going to take 5 months to raise capital, sometimes founders might wait 8 months and then only give themselves 2 months to go raise. And then they run out of money. Or in many cases, what happens if you wait too long to start your fundraise is you start raising and you're quickly running out of capital. And so you get desperate and you're not able to raise from a position of power. The more time you give yourself, the more power you have. If you don't need money when you get options or when you get offers, you don't have to take it. And that's power. When you don't have to take an offer, that's powerful. Now, there is something to be said where, listen, you have to be ready to go fundraise. And we'll get in that a bit later of like, how much should you be raising? When should you be raising? Is it stage appropriate? But you need to give yourself plenty of time to go raise capital. Don't expect that it's going to take you a month. It's going to take you a month just to do all the preparation up front. It's going to take you 3 months of pitching and at least a month to close, especially if you're, and sometimes longer if you're raising later stage rounds like A rounds or B rounds. The doc time can take forever. So make sure you plan appropriate. Give yourself the best chance at closing a round, and closing a round where you're doing it because you want to take the terms and the investors, not because you have to. There's a couple key questions you ask. This is a broad question, like how much money should we raise? There's 4 things that you need to be thinking about when you decide that. How much do you want? How much do you need? Where does it get you? And what does that mean? Entrepreneurs are pretty good at those first 3, but the what does that mean tends to really trip them up. We'll get to that in a second. The what do you want? Founders can pull numbers out of air. They come from all over the place sometimes. But what you need is actually where you really want to spend time and drill down on. And what you need and where does it get you are really tied together. In order to understand those 2 numbers, you need to put great financial projections together. If you don't have financial projections and you don't understand how you're going to spend the money and how that affects your growth rate, how do you know where that money is going to get you? How are you going to know what you need to grow? Troy Henikoff from Math Ventures does a great job with startup financial projections. You should go check out some of his videos and check out his blog about how to build great startup financials. I'd really recommend it. It's when you see entrepreneurs that use that methodology, it's really impressive from an investor perspective. And it really, again, helps you understand, okay, if your goal or where we're trying to get is $1 million in annual revenue, you can kind of back into, okay, how much money do we need to get there? And that's your need number. Now, you might actually want more. Let's pretend, again, you need $1 million to get there. You might want 2 million because it gives you some extra runway, gives you some cushion, allows you to try 3 other things. So you might want more than $1 million. You might want 2 million. And a mistake some founders make is they actually go out and they pitch $2 million. The problem with going out and pitching your want number to an investor is if you don't reach that want number, if you don't get that much money committed to your round, you might not be able to close any money that you did have committed. So in the scenario where you're trying to raise 2 million, let's say you're able to find a couple investors and they've got $1 million that they want to invest in your company. Most investors won't just write you the check when they commit. They wait for you to raise the entire amount. So they want you to raise all 2 million before they sign any docs, before they wire you any money. And if you go back to those investors after trying to fundraise for 6 months and you haven't been able to get any more, and it's just that 1 million, they might not close with you, or the terms or deal might change because, hey, they're now taking additional financial risk. You told me to do this plan, you need $2 million or you want $2 million. Now you're telling me you can do it for $1 million? That sounds riskier to me as an investor. I don't know if I want to invest in that. I don't know if I want to put my money in right now. So you can shoot yourself in the foot as an entrepreneur by pitching that want number. However, in the other scenario, let's say you wanted 2 million, but you went out and told people you were raising 1 million. There's a bit more scarcity, right? You're raising less money, so there's scarcity of what you're giving up is that $1 million. So investors might need to commit earlier. B, now you get that same scenario where you've got $1 million committed and closed. Those investors are comfortable with putting their money to work. And the trick here is that you can actually always oversubscribe. So oversubscribe means you go out and you try and raise $1 million, but you actually have 1.5 million in interest. Or in this case, maybe you actually had $2 million of interest. It's much easier to go back to those early investors that were that first million and say, hey, guess what? There's so much interest in our round that we're going to actually be able to close 2 million. Are you okay with that, investors? And oftentimes the investors are going to be like, yep, that's good. You're going to be well capitalized. We're excited about it. You can we're comfortable with you bringing in extra money. It's much easier to oversubscribe around than undersubscribe around. Now, we've talked a little bit about where does that money get you. And again, founders are pretty good at understanding where the capital gets them based on projections. Now, startup projections are notoriously wrong and for good reason, because you never know what's going to happen. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't have an idea of how you're going to deploy the money and where you think it's going to get you, right? That's the baseline. Even if we get it wrong, that's okay as long as we learn from it and we understand. What most founders aren't great at is understanding what that actually means for the company. There's really only ever 4 outcomes for a company at the end of a runway, right? You can go raise more money, which is the most common path that entrepreneurs go down once they raise an early stage round, like a seed stage round of capital. Their plan is to go raise a Series A. That's what they're working towards. You can go out of business because you ran out of money and died. You can be cash flow break even. So you're now cash flow break even and you're positive and you can just run the business, or you can get acquired. Those are the only 4 potential outcomes of a business. And founders aren't great at understanding wherever that money got you, what you can do next. So oftentimes you'll see a pitch where a founder comes in and says, yep, we're raising $1 million and it's going to get us to $50,000 in monthly recurring revenue. And at that point, we're going to be able to go raise a $10 million Series A. And the expectations for what is actually happening in the market are just way off because founders haven't done their research on where they need to be to raise that next round of venture capital or to get acquired or to be cash flow break even. It's just unrealistic. And so what you can do as a founder to really set yourself apart from other founders is understand what that next iteration of your business looks like and where you need to be, and make sure you're raising enough money to get there. So if you're an enterprise SaaS company and you want to get to a Series A after a seed round, in today's market, you're going to need to be at least at 100,000 in monthly recurring revenue. And so if you show me projections that don't get you there, and you're telling me you're going to go raise $10 million, I'm going to think that, hey, as a founder, you're a bit disconnected. What's reality? So do your research with that next stage of investor. Understand where you need to be. So when I ask you, hey, where does this money get you? And what's that allow you to do? You can say, hey, yeah, this is going to get us to $100,000 in monthly recurring revenue. And we've talked to 4 funds that are the next round of investors already that have all kind of told us that if we get there, they're really going to be really interested in our business. It's a great way to separate yourself from most founders who don't go to that level. Understand what it means where this current round gets you, what that means for your next round or for that next stage in your company. That's the end of the first segment. Hope you enjoyed it and hope you stay on for the next round.